This video is about famous Hollywood celebrities and people who passed away from 1st to 5th of January 2024 in the United States. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Brian McConnell. He was born in March 1941 and he died in January 2024. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death were complications from Parkinson's disease. Brian McConnell was an American comedy writer and actor, best known for his work on the legendary sketch comedy series SCTV. He also wrote for the National Lampoon, Radio R, and was a contributor to the National Lampoon magazine. McConnell was a respected figure in the world of comedy. David Soul. He was born in August 1943 and he died in January 2024. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was cancer. David Soul was an American-British actor and singer, a pop culture icon of the 1970s. He was best known for his role as Detective Ken Hutchinson in the hit television series Starsky and Hutch. Soul also had a successful music career with his single Don't Give Up on Us, reaching #1 on the charts. Harry Johnson. He was born in December 1942 and he died in January 2024. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Harry Johnson was an American actor who starred in hit series such as Battlestar Galactica, Law & Order, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He appeared in several classic television series including BJ and the Bear, The Incredible Hulk, Days of Our Lives, Simon and Simon, MASH, The A-Team, and many more. Johnson contributed to pop culture across various television shows throughout the 1990s and 2000s. Mickey Kotra. He was born in September 1944 and he died in January 2024. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was Parkinson's disease. Mickey Kotra was an American film producer and publicist, a respected figure in independent cinema. He produced films like LA Story and was a longtime publicist for independent films. Kotra was a dedicated advocate for independent film. David J. Scott. He was born in June 1952 and he died in January 2024. His age was 71 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was traffic accident. David J. Scott was an American cultural historian and author, a leading expert on the history of horror and monster films. He wrote influential books like Hollywood Gothic, The Tangled Web of Dracula, From Novel to Stage to Screen. Scott was a respected figure in the world of film history. Bridget Dobson. She was born in September 1938 and she died in January 2024. Her age was 85 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. Bridget Dobson was an American screenwriter and soap opera creator, a respected figure in daytime television. With her husband, she co-created the acclaimed soap opera Santa Barbara. Dobson also wrote for shows like As the World Turns. Adaora Adora. She was born in May 1956 and she died in January 2024. Her age was 67 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was cancer. Adaora Adora was an American physician and researcher and expert on HIV/AIDS in marginalized communities. She was a professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Adora was a respected figure in public health. Peter Burkos. He was born in August 1922 and he died in January 2024. His age was 101 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Peter Burkos was an American sound editor and Academy Award winner for his work on the film The Hindenburg. He had a long career in Hollywood, working on numerous films. Burkos was a respected figure in the film industry. Toll Ross. He was born in October 1948 and he died in January 2024. His age was 75 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Toll Ross was an American musician, the original guitarist for the legendary funk band Funkadelic. He was a key member of the band's early lineup, contributing to their distinctive sound. Ross was a respected figure in the world of funk music. Larry Collins, he was born in October 1944 and he died in January 2024. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Larry Collins was an American guitarist, best known for being a part of the Collins Kid duo with his sister Laurie, being mentored by Joe Mathis, and for his fast and energetic playing. When the Collins Kids initially split up in 1961, Collins continued to perform as a solo artist and most notably co-wrote the 1972 hit Delta Dawn. Gene Deere, he was born in June 1964 and he died in January 2024. His age was 59 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Gene Deere was an American blues, rock, and country musician and singer-songwriter based in Indianapolis, Indiana, regularly playing shows at the historic Slippery Noodle Inn in Indianapolis. He recorded and released 2 LPs for the Slippery Noodle sound label. Tracy Tormet, he was born in April 1959 and he died in January 2024. His age was 64 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death were complications from diabetes. Tracy Tormet was an American screenwriter and producer, known for his work in science fiction. He wrote for the television series Star Trek: The Next Generation and was a co-creator of the show Sliders. Tormet was a respected figure in sci-fi television. J. Russell George, he was born in October 1963 and he died in January 2024. His age was 60 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. J. Russell George was an American government official who served as the Inspector General of the Treasury. He was a respected public servant in Washington, D.C. George had a long career in government. Sidney Amwolf, he was born in June 1937 and he died in January 2024. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was brain tumor. Sidney Amwolf was an American physician and consumer advocate known for his work in public health. He was a co-founder of Public Citizens Health Research Group and was a tireless advocate for drugs and medical device safety. Wolf was a respected figure in consumer advocacy. Edward E. Crutchfield, he was born in June 1941 and he died in January 2024. His age was 82 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Edward E. Crutchfield was an American business executive who served as the CEO of First Union Corporation. He was a prominent figure in the banking industry. Crutchfield was a respected leader in the corporate world. Joseph L Levelt, he was born in April 1937 and he died in January 2024. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death were complications of Parkinson's disease. Joseph L Levelt was an American journalist and author, a Pulitzer Prize winner, and a former executive editor of the New York Times. He was known for his coverage of South Africa and his book Move Your Shadow, South Africa, Black and White. L Levelt was a respected and influential figure in journalism. Jack O'Connell, he was born in December 1959 and he died in January 2024. His age was 64 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Jack O'Connell was an American author of noir, crime fiction, and speculative fiction novels. O'Connell stated that the post-industrial urban decay of Worcester was an influence on Quinsigamond, the fictional city where his novels are set. From 1997 to 2008, he served as the editor of Holy Cross magazine. E. Leo Milous, he was born in October 1936 and he died in January 2024. His age was 87 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart failure. E. Leo Milous was an American judge and lawyer who served for 26 years as a judge in New York State. He chaired the New York Commissions on Judicial Nomination from 2019 until his death and retired from his position as a partner with the law firm Pillsbury Winthrop at the end of 2023. Gordon R. Sullivan, he was born in September 1937 and he died in January 2024. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Gordon R. Sullivan was a United States Army officer, a retired general who served as the Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He was a highly respected leader in the armed forces. Sullivan was a dedicated public servant. Richard Woodcock, he was born in January 1928 and he died in January 2024. His age was 95 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Richard Woodcock was an American psychologist, a co-creator of the Woodcock-Johnson test of cognitive abilities, a widely used educational assessment tool. His work had a significant impact on the field of education and psychology. Woodcock was a respected scholar. Nicholas Rasher, he was born in July 1928 and he died in January 2024. His age was 95 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Nicholas Rasher was a German-American philosopher, a professor at the University of Pittsburgh. He was a prolific author who wrote on a wide range of philosophical topics. Rasher was a respected and influential figure in the world of philosophy. Robert Rosenthal, he was born in March 1933 and he died in January 2024. His age was 90 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was aneurysm. Robert Rosenthal was a German-born American psychologist who was a distinguished professor of psychology at the University of California, Riverside. His interests included self-fulfilling prophecies, which he explored in a well-known study of the Pygmalion effect, the effect of teachers' expectations on students. James N. Prusal Jr., he was born in 1938 and he died in January 2024. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. James N. Prusal Jr. was an American writer and diplomat who wrote, "We are in danger. Who will help us? Refugees and Migrants, A Test of Civilization 2019. The book is a history of events and teamwork among members of the United States Refugee Program Bureau and its protection and resettlement programs, domestic and with international cooperation." Vat Praash Nanda, he was born in November 1934 and he died in January 2024. His age was 89 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death were complications following a fall. Vat Praash Nanda was an Indian-American lawyer and professor at the University of Denver. He was an expert on international law and human rights. Nanda was a respected scholar and a long-time educator. Donald D. Clayton, he was born in March 1935 and he died in January 2024. His age was 88 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Donald D. Clayton was an American astrophysicist, a professor at Clemson University. He was an expert on nucleosynthesis and gamma-ray astronomy. Clayton was a respected scholar who contributed to the understanding of the universe. Mary Jane Garcia, she was born in December 1936 and she died in January 2024. Her age was 87 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. Mary Jane Garcia was an American politician who served as a New Mexico state senator. She was a longtime public servant in her state. Garcia was a respected figure in New Mexico politics. She represented the 36th district from 1988 to 2012. Bill W. Stacy, he was born in July 1938 and he died in January 2024. His age was 85 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Bill W. Stacy was an American academic administrator who served as the president of California State University, San Marcos. He was a respected figure in higher education. Stacy's leadership guided the university. Charles O. Jones, he was born in October 1931 and he died in January 2024. His age was 92 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Charles O. Jones was an American political scientist and professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He was a leading expert on the United States Congress and the presidency. Jones was a respected scholar and a longtime educator. Fred Chappell, he was born in May 1936 and he died in January 2024. His age was 87 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Fred Chappell was an American poet, novelist, and short story writer. He served as Poet Laureate of North Carolina and was known for his lyrical prose and poetry. Chappell was a respected and award-winning author. Linga, she was born in July 1956 and she died in January 2024. Her age was 67 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was esophageal cancer. Lynn Davis, known as Linga, was an American internet personality and the host of the popular YouTube cooking channel Cooking with Linga. She became a beloved figure for her simple and engaging cooking videos. Linga was a respected and beloved content creator. Yahu Salomon, he was born in November 1937 and he died in January 2024. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Yahu Salomon was a prominent Haredi rabbi and lecturer. He was a respected spiritual leader in Orthodox Jewish community. Salomon's teachings and guidance were influential to many. Elliot DeKeefe, he was born in February 1943 and he died in January 2024. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Elliot DeKeefe was an American physician and scientist, a professor at Harvard Medical School. He was an expert on Epstein-Barr virus and contributed significantly to the understanding of the virus. Keefe was a respected scholar and researcher. Yoram Germick, he was born in April 1943 and he died in January 2024. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Yoram Germick was an American priest who served as the Minister General of the Franciscan Order. He was a respected leader in the Catholic Church. Germick's spiritual guidance was influential to many. Michael Schwarz, he was born in July 1937 and he died in January 2024. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Michael Schwarz was an American academic administrator who served as president of Kent State University and later in the same position at Cleveland State University. While at Cleveland State University, he phased out open admissions for college undergraduates. Nancy Adler, she was born in July 1946 and she died in January 2024. Her age was 77 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was pancreatic cancer. Nancy Adler was an American health psychologist, a professor at the University of California, San Francisco. She was a respected scholar who contributed to the understanding of social determinants of health. Adler was a dedicated educator and researcher. Frank Q Nabiker, he was born in April 1930 and he died in January 2024. His age was 93 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Frank Q Nabiker was an American judge who served as the Chief Justice of the United States Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. He had a long and distinguished career on the federal bench. Nabiker was a respected jurist. John Scales Avery, he was born in May 1933 and he died in January 2024. His age was 90 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. John Scales Avery was a Danish-American chemist and peace activist. He was a professor at the University of Copenhagen and was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on disarmament. Avery was a respected scholar and a dedicated activist. Alexis Smith, she was born in August 1949 and she died in January 2024. Her age was 74 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death were complications of Alzheimer's disease. Alexis Smith was an American visual artist. She worked in collage and installation. Smith combined text and imagery from a variety of sources to explore the psychology of the American identity. Don Reed, he was born in December 1933 and he died in January 2024. His age was 90 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Don Reed was an American college football coach who served as the head coach at Montana State University. He led the Bobcats to a national championship. Reed was a respected figure in college athletics. David P. Gardner, he was born in March 1933 and he died in January 2024. His age was 90 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. David P. Gardner was an American academic administrator who served as the president of the University of California system. He was a respected figure in higher education. Gardner's leadership guided the university system for many years. Anthony J. Alvarado, he was born in January 1942 and he died in January 2024. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was blood cancer and pneumonia. Anthony J. Alvarado was an American educator and administrator who served from 1983 to 1984 as New York City School Chancellor, overseeing the operation of the largest public school district in the United States as the school system's first Hispanic chancellor. Cameron Duncan, he was born in November 1956 and he died in January 2024. His age was 67 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was pancreatic cancer. Cameron Duncan was an American boxing manager, a respected figure in the sport. He managed numerous world champion boxers throughout his career. Duncan was a dedicated and influential figure in boxing. Frank Ryan, he was born in July 1936 and he died in January 2024. His age was 87 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was complication from Alzheimer's disease. Frank Ryan was an American professional football player, a quarterback who played for the Cleveland Browns in the NFL. He led the Browns to the 1964 NFL Championship. Ryan was a respected player and a PhD in mathematics. Billy Gardner, he was born in July 1927 and he died in January 2024. His age was 96 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Billy Gardner was an American professional baseball player and manager who managed the Minnesota Twins and Kansas City Royals in the MLB. He had a long career in professional baseball, both as a player and a manager. Gardner was a respected figure in the sport. Marty Amsler, he was born in October 1942 and he died in January 2024. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Marty Amsler was an American professional football player who was a defensive end in the NFL for the Chicago Bears, Cincinnati Bengals, and Green Bay Packers. He played college football for the Evansville Purple Aces. Willie Bethia, he was born in July 1938 and he died in January 2024. His age was 85 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Willie Bethia was an American professional football player who was a running back for the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the Canadian Football League. He won the Grey Cup with them in 1963, 1965, and 1967. Bethia was inducted into the Tiger Cats Wall of Honor in 2012. Jax Kurak, he was born in February 1959 and he died in January 2024. His age was 64 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Jax Kurak was an American professional football player, a linebacker who played for the Los Angeles Raiders in the NFL. He's best known for his game-winning interception in Super Bowl XVIII. Kurak was a respected player and a Super Bowl hero. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.